New bombshell reports today on a massive banking scandal surrounding Britain's largest bank, HSBC. A massive trove of files known as the FinCEN Files are now shedding light on an alleged Ponzi scheme that bank officials reportedly knew about but allowed to keep going. Now, what makes this story even more surprising is that this activity reportedly began shortly after HSBC had been fined almost $2 billion by the U.S. for money laundering. So joining us now with more details, Boom Bust co-host and investigative journalist Ben Swann. So Ben, let's start with the nuts and bolts, the basics here. What specifically are these FinCEN files?
Yeah, so essentially it's about 2,600 to 2,700 documents that apparently are at the heart of something called SARS, or Suspicious Activity Reports. Of all these documents, about 2,100 of them are these SARS reports. So Suspicious Activity Reports are something that banks are required to file and pass along to the government when they see suspicious activity going on with a bank account. Now, because of Know Your Customer laws, banks are required to do more than just know the customer. If they see something that is happening that appears to be illegal, they have an obligation not just to pass along that information, but to actually shut down accounts. HSBC apparently did not do that for a very long time and allowed millions of dollars to be run through these accounts, according to these documents, by a scam that was working through the United States and into multiple countries around the world, including Colombia, Peru, and the UK.
Now, what's weird about this, Ben, is that the group that found these SARS and leaked them to the media is the same group, if we recall back a few years, the same group that released the Panama Papers. So what was the scam that HSBC appears to have been turning a blind eye to?
Yeah, so apparently it was a Ponzi scheme. That's the claim. And it's an investment firm called WCM 777. It was a Chinese national by the name of Ming Zhu who apparently had set this up. He was claiming that he was in Los Angeles, claiming that he was an investment bank, a world capital market, he said. And this is what he was guaranteeing, that he would pay out 100% profit in 100 days to any investors. Now, you and I both know as soon as somebody says that, you should know this is a scam, right? The problem is he wasn't targeting savvy people. He was targeting low-income people in California and in foreign countries, as I said, in Peru and in Colombia and in the UK. And apparently, this guy had these accounts set up through HSBC and was running millions of dollars, $15 million at one point, $9 million at another point. And he was moving this through by doing, webinars and seminars and trying to claim that he was teaching people about finance, but kind of styling himself as a Dr. Phil of finance, whatever that means.
Oh, boy. I mean, it's always the littlest guys, Ben. It's always the little ones that lose their shirts in scams like this. So HSBC, they obviously spotted that there was some suspicious activity, some transactions going through their systems, and ultimately they did shut it down, the accounts of the WCM 777, I'm going to say. So why are the regulators saying that HSBC didn't do enough? I mean, what else are they supposed to do?
Right. So at the very beginning, as I mentioned to you, it's not enough just to spot that there's suspicious activity and to pass along that information, but you have to do something about it. So with just a very quick timeline here, HSBC filed its first SAR, its first suspicious activity report on this group on the 29th of October of 2013. They were pointing out that there were $6 million sent through a fraudster's account in Hong Kong. They said it was suspicious, and they reported it, but they allowed that account to stay open. In February of 2014, they saw another $15.4 million move through. They called that a suspicious transaction, but they kept the accounts open. And then it happened again with nearly $9.2 million in March, and it was not until April of 2014, so about 6 months later, that they finally began to close down the accounts. But when they closed down the accounts, they basically waited until all the accounts had been emptied. So they didn't actually close down any accounts or freeze any of these investors' monies. Instead, it was allowed to pass through. They sent the reports, but they didn't do anything. And
just coincidentally, it was when those bank accounts were emptied out, zero money left in them. Now let's close them down. Okay, so this is not obviously the first time that HSBC has been in trouble for something similar to this, with bank officials, nearly facing criminal charges for allowing Mexican drug lords to run funds through their banks. So how can this happen so shortly after that incident?
That's kind of the biggest question here. So HSBC paid a $1.9 billion fine. I'll let that sink in for a second, from the U.S. government because of this corruption, essentially, where they were allowing Mexican drug cartels to run money through their Hong Kong bank. At the same time that they allowed this to happen, they had just started paying the fine. They turned around and they were allowing this to take place. What HSBC has said is, well, we're doing better. We're actually instituting new rules that would help protect. What's really important here, Manila, and I think the main key point is that no one went to jail from HSBC over the Mexican drug cartel money laundering. Had people gone to prison for that, then I don't think we would have had this same scandal coming up again, the one we're looking at now with the WCM 777. Instead, we have this scandal because while you might find these banks, no one really pays a price for it other than shareholders. They'll pay a price for it, and the people who ultimately are taken advantage of in the Ponzi scheme. But at the end of the day, unless somebody goes to jail, what is the incentive for these banks to stop doing this?
Yeah, exactly. Good point. As always, Ben Swann, thank you for weighing in.